My favorite is probably expect what you accept.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
And why
You
so?
teach you teach people how to treat you. So if you accept trash behavior, that's what people will give you. You are not giving them an incentive to do better. There's no reason for them to do better if you accept that.
Create your life. Crée ta propre vie.
Create your life.
创造你的生活。
Create your life.
Crea la tua vita.
Create your life.
Und skip your liver.
You better create your life.
Create your life.
Create la vie.
Create your life.
Create your life.
Beautiful people, this is the Create Your Life series. I'm your host, Kevin Y. Brown, and today we have an amazing guest. When I say amazing, I'm kind of like I feel like I'm being too conservative with saying that. She is currently the head of business operations management, North America at StubHub, formerly the lead counsel for the global infrastructure development and operations inbound commercial legal team at Facebook. She's an award-winning attorney receiving the Excellence in Legal Innovation Award from the National Bar Association. She's been awarded and nominated and won as 40 Under 40 from both the Digital Diversity Network and National Bar Associations. She's a graduate of the University of California, Berkeley. Shouts out to the Bay Area. With her bachelor's in mass communications. St. Mary's College of California has her MBA from there. And the University of California, Los Angeles, she has her MA in African American Studies there. And the University of California, Hastings College of Law, she has her Juris Doctorate. She's also very active in her community as a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Links Incorporated, and is into political organizing and fundraising at the local, state, and national level. She's an Oakland native, again, Bay Area stand up. And she and her husband, Jamie, live in Oakland with their 2 children who are 7 and 2 years old. Beautiful people, I'm speaking of no other than Miss Bari A. Williams. Bari, please say hello to the Create Your Life series family.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. Happy to come represent, especially always Bay Area, always town, always Cal Bears, always Black people.
I love it. Jumping right in, I'm kind of like, you're a superhero. Like, what don't you do? That is
All wear
right, and I feel like that's so important because you're doing this thing in corporate. You're a mom, you're a wife, you're a daughter. You're like, man, I don't have the talent to do all of that stuff.
Yeah, you do. Sure, you do.
I might need some training from you or something like that. You know, I might need some mentorship or something.
Just learn how to. Well, yeah, we talk about that. But just learn how to maximize insomnia. That's what I do. So I spend a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I spend a lot of time writing and reading when I have insomnia. So perfect example. I woke up at 3:30 in the morning yesterday and started reading. And then after that, what I was reading was kind of inspiring me to refine something I'd already drafted. So I was writing. And then I got up and attended a conference. I was out of town attending a conference, and so I went and started my day.
Wow.
After I kind of like to look at it like I had a 4-hour head start, right? So it's how do you use those 4 hours?
That's real. Let me ask you this. Before we even really get into this, I read that you're a huge sports fan. Who are your teams?
Yes. Okay, I'm from Oakland. So first off, I want to say, because people always think this, I was a Warriors fan before they got hot. I was actually
respect
a
that.
Warriors intern my senior year at Cal. I was a Warriors intern when they had Antoine Jameson and Danielle Marshall and a bunch of people that you can't name. Like, does anybody remember Vonteego Cummings? I remember Vonteego Cummings.
And Eric Dampier.
Yes, Eric Dampier was on the team when I was an intern.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been down with Warriors since I was little. I am also a huge Raiders fan. My family now has. I know we're not supposed to be watching football, but we still support Oakland homegrown talent. So I did buy my husband and both my kids Marshawn Lynch jerseys.
Okay.
So, I mean, and I don't like baseball, but my husband is a huge A's fan. Baseball makes me want to take a nap.
That
But
makes
if I
two
was
of
a
us.
baseball fan, I'd like the A's.
Okay, that
I
makes
just
two of
don't.
us.
It's just nothing there for me with baseball.
It's funny because I feel like in the Bay, you're either one or the other, and we're sitting here talking. You're like pro Oakland everything. I was actually born in San Francisco, lived out there for a bit, so I'm like everything like 49ers and Giants. So I love it. The rivalry is real.
Yeah,
It's real.
There's really no rivalry this year. I mean, all the teams were bad, so I mean, nobody's
Sadly,
is that great.
Yeah, true.
Except the Warriors.
Right.
I mean, they'll probably repeat, so you can hop on that train with the rest of us.
Well, I mean, I've always been a Warrior fan by default, but definitely was always a bigger Kobe Bryant fan. So I'm kind of a Laker. I just like that dude's work ethic.
We should in the conversation.
Is that right? Why? Because
I don't really know what to do with what you just said. So.
Okay, change the subject.
Kobe.
Hold on. What? His work ethic.
I will say I admire exactly. That's where I was going. I admire his work ethic. I admire his dedication and commitment to excellence.
Yes.
I admire how competitive he is, and I admire that he is competitive not necessarily with other people, but with himself.
Yes.
He wants to push himself. He's not worried about what you're doing. He's worried about what he's doing. And I appreciate that. But the problem is when you put that on a team, it doesn't always work.
I concur.
So, that's kind of my thing with Kobe.
Okay. Well, I just love the work ethic. All of those things that you named, that you listed, that's why I love this guy. I just love his work ethic and stuff. I don't know him personally.
He's now taking all that. I don't either. But he's now taking all of that fabulous work ethic and is now investing it into tech as an investor and using it to build businesses, which I think is a great place for him to put that, because I think there's no greater competition outside of sports except probably in tech right now. So that's good use of his time and his money. I'd love to see him fund more companies and founders of color.
Soon come.
That'd be great.
I guess my first question for you is with such an array of different experiences and even degrees, how do you decide which projects or jobs to actually take on? Because it seems like the world is at your fingertips at this point. So how do you decide what new tasks you want?
Yeah. I think it's deciding what it is that you want out of life. And for me, the way that I look at that is my mother and my grandmother were in education. So both of them were teachers and counseling until they retired. And for me, that just fostered a love of learning. So I like to think of myself as a lifelong learner. And the things that motivate me are who are the people that I'm going to work with? But more than that, what are the things that I'm going to learn at that company and in that particular position? And I think you also have to do your due diligence in terms of thinking of the company itself might be great, but you have to really check out your team and check out the role and the scope of the role that you're in, because the company itself could be awesome, but your manager could be trash. And that is going to have more impact on how you view the company and your personal experience than the fact that you work at a great company. So my husband has a saying about how people leave managers, not organizations. And it's very true.
Wow.
It's typically when people quit their jobs, they are leaving because they don't like their manager or they don't like the scope of their role. And more often than not, the scope of your role is based on who your manager is. So I think it's imperative for people to think about that when they sign up for something. But for me, I like to look at, what am I going to learn in the role? How great is the company? and how great is the team. And personally for me, I'm very mission driven. And so if I can find a company that has a great mission that I support, that's always a check in the yes column.
Yeah.
But even more than that, if it's a product or a good or a service that I use myself, that's that's always that's always paramount. Because if I can pick out flaws, or I can tell you how to improve it because I'm
Right.
familiar with it and I use it.
But you have an MBA and then you also have a degree in African American Studies. Why law, or what inspired you to take that route as well?
Yeah, I feel like there are lots of people with business degrees, and I find that the impact of having both a business degree and a law degree, you get the best of both worlds, and you also know when to use one degree and when to use the other. And the thinking skills, I think, are different, which a lot of people don't necessarily think about. And law school, the first year, it's all about training you to think like a lawyer.
Right.
And that's to ask questions, smart questions, how to issue spot and see when something is wrong, and how to just constantly poke holes in arguments and rationale, and really trying to look for answers. The goal is for you to be someone who's a fact finder. And I think that lawyers don't always have the answers, but we will always have all the questions. And oftentimes that leads to the answer. So for me, it was important to have that foundational knowledge. But I really, really like being an attorney. And I think it's a skill set that people don't necessarily know how to harness. And particularly, I wanted to be a transactional attorney. Most Black attorneys are in litigation, and even within that subset, they're mostly in employment litigation. And for me, I find that transactional law is so powerful because it can help you build businesses. It can help you make alliances. It's how you actually create things. So the type of law that I practice is constructive, whereas litigation is more destructive, because there's a winner and a loser. And if you're doing transactional law correctly, everybody wins.
Got you. And it's all about the team winning.
Yeah.
So when you got your MBA prior to getting your MBA and your MA prior to getting your JD, correct? What was the time difference in between those two? In between those three, like what did that trajectory look like for you?
Yeah. So I graduated from Berkeley a year early.
Okay.
So for me, I really enjoyed my college experience, but I also had the opportunity to graduate early. And I am somebody who, if nothing else, I'm efficient.
Yeah.
And so I saw that, okay, well, I could do this in 3 years, and I could actually just spend a year or two working and just kind of figuring out life. So I graduated and I was 20, and
Wow.
I'd always lived in the Bay. I'd always lived in Oakland. And so I moved to LA and worked in advertising for a couple years, and I had a great time. I actually did go to several Lakers games. It was when they were winning. Yeah, so I won't give Kobe too much heat, but I lived in LA. I enjoyed it. It gave me a chance to be away from home and kind of learn how to be an adult, which I wanted. And then after that, I came back home, got my MBA, and I did probably a year. I worked again for a year in advertising, and then went and got my MA at UCLA. So I went back to LA again, and I really enjoy UCLA. It's a beautiful campus. It's very, very different than Berkeley, like super different. People think all UCs are the same, and each one has their own kind of individual vibe and culture and style. And UCLA is extremely different than Berkeley, but in a good way. And I liked it. But I knew that I didn't want to stay there forever. Like, I think people are usually Bay or LA people.
Definitely.
I think you get it. You understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think people are Bay or LA people, and what's interesting is I find that most Bay people are also New York people. Like, if you like the Bay,
adapt.
you'll like New York. If you like LA, you probably won't like New York, and vice versa. But yeah, I knew I wanted to come home. I'm my mom's only child.
Okay.
So for me, that was also a big driver, was that I wanted to be near family. My husband is also from Oakland.
Nice.
And so we met in the 8th grade. And so we decided to move home. and I decided to go to law school at Hastings because my grandparents were getting older. My mom was having to do more, and I thought being home would help me help her.
Yeah.
And also, I knew I just didn't want to settle in LA. And oftentimes, when you graduate or when you're in law school, you do internships in the city in which your school is in. 9 times out of 10, live in LA, and so I wasn't even going to be bothered with like going through the whole process and then having job offers in LA because I didn't really want to live there full time.
Okay.
Love to visit. Don't want to live
True. There. Yeah. I mean, like you said, you know, it's just different vibes, man. It's a different life. As a young African American woman, double minority, working in the executive suite, what habits or mindsets did you have to overcome in order to break through, to overcome and have a breakthrough to become who you are today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what's interesting, it's not necessarily I guess it is a mindset, but the mindset I had to break through was, I would say, the double consciousness. So we've always talked about how there's the double consciousness, and you can think about it even with code switching, right? Like the way I talk to my friends is not the way that I would speak at work.
Right.
And vice versa. And I kind of did away with that. And what was interesting about it is Facebook was really the place where I stopped doing that as much. Facebook had a very come as you are kind of philosophy in terms of their employees. Now, it's the come as you are to a certain extent, like come as you are maybe 80%. You don't want to come 90 because
that's too much.
Extra 10, like that's a little too much. But I distinctly remember in my interview, somebody asked me like, what did I do for fun? And I told them about how much I like sports. And the next interviewer asked me like, what's something about me that that they wouldn't be able to tell by looking at me or like by the way that I was presenting in that interview. And I said, I have, you know, zebra print toenails right now, and I really enjoy Monday night VH1 lineup. Like that's my thing. Like I love all the Love and Hip Hop. I love Real Housewives of Atlanta. Like that's what I like. You asked me.
Hey, you kept it solid.
Yeah, and it was funny because the interviewer laughed. The interviewer also had a mohawk.
Yeah.
So, you know, my thing is, you know, if he could do it, I can do it too.
Absolutely.
So for me, it was once I became more comfortable and I just kind of said, you know what, whatever, I'm just going to be who I am and I'll let my work speak for itself. Things actually started to trend more in that direction for me. It's the more I came into my own and the more comfortable I was in my own skin and showing that to other people, the more things came easily for me in terms of, you know, once you have a larger comfort with yourself, you're comfortable with the work that you produce. You're comfortable with pushing boundaries. You're comfortable with, you know, asking for forgiveness and not permission.
I love it. So what would you say was like the defining moment that really, if you can go back even before you had this opportunity at Facebook, what was that defining moment that set you up on the path to be who you are now, or that moment where you decided, you know what, I'm going to create my life and I'm just going to live on my own terms?
I think there was a moment where I had interviewed to work at Google in their legal department, and for whatever reason they lost the head count, and I was so crushed because I was so excited that I had gotten to the end and I got a verbal offer, and it's Google, right? Like everybody loves Google,
Of course.
and it happened to they asked me to come back and interview again. They're like, oh no, this time, you know, we thought you were great. We're going to put you through the process again. And they shortened the interviews because I'd already done one round, and then they lost the head count again.
Wow.
Right. And I said, you know, whatever, I'm just going to let this go. What's for me is for me. Clearly this isn't it. And that's okay. And my mom sends me text messages of scripture or rap lyrics.
Nice. Let's go, Mom. Every morning still, right now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could pull up the one she sent me today.
Pull that up now. I definitely want to see it.
And sometimes it depends on her mood, and sometimes it depends on the mood that she is that she's reading from me, like what she thinks that I need.
I love it.
But yeah, my mom is trill. Like she will give it to you straight. There have been times when my mom has texted me T.I. lyrics, and like I've asked her at times, like, what do you I'm having this kind of issue today. Like, what should I do? And she's like, Tamala Man or T.I. Like, which one do you feel like you need more today? Like, what's going to be the motivator? But yeah, that's my mom. Yeah, the Lord is my light and salvation. Whom shall I fear?
Okay.
Yeah. So that was today's lead off. But
What was the last rap song or rap lyric? I'm just so curious because she's slowly becoming my hero right now.
My mom is. I'll tell her. There was no rap lyric today.
What, last week? Yesterday?
I've had to pull it up. I could dig for one. But
Okay.
yeah, it's usually she loves T.I.
Yeah.
But yeah, family hustle was her thing. She had a whole live your life quote last week, like the opposite of moderate, immaculately polished with the spirit of a hustler and the swagger of a college kid. And she's like, this is you. This is you. This is how you should feel today. I was like, okay.
Yo, let's go. Where's she at? Bring her on. Like,
she's in Oakland.
Hey, I'm gonna have to come and sit down with her. For real, for real. That is hot. What's your mom's name?
Linda.
Okay, Miss Linda. Yeah. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the defining moment.
Yeah, that was really the defining moment. Was my mom texting me those things every morning is really a good grounding for me. And having that experience happen, and she's just like, that's not the one. Like if something is for you, it will come to you. And even if, this doesn't necessarily mean you'll never work at Google or that you'll never work in tech. It just means that that is not the opportunity for you. And she always would say, delayed is not denied, which is super true. And literally, I think maybe 4 months after that, I got hired at Facebook. And I wasn't looking. It was just a law school classmate who worked at Facebook already. She was transitioning legal teams, and someone connected me to her and was like, hey, don't you guys know each other? And this role's open. Is this what you do? And I was like, oh, yeah, this is exactly what I do. And that's how it happened.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
Some things you shouldn't force. Like I would say always put your best foot forward and always try. But if you have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and try to force something, maybe you should just take a step back and say, okay, is this what I should be doing? Is this a good use of my energy?
Right.
And at that moment, that trying to keep forcing that role was not a good use of my energy.
You know what? Oftentimes people might see the end result and they see where you are now, or they see that you got that job at Facebook and, you stopped worrying about Google. But they didn't see the challenges that you had to endure in order to be, Bari A. Williams, you know what I mean, who's this amazing speaker, executive, mother, wife, daughter, all of these things. Can you speak to some of the challenges that you had to overcome? And what were some of the things that helped you to overcome them?
Yeah, that episode that Google issue was like a huge thing for me. Like I was so distraught. Like, I was depressed about that for a good 2.5 months because I had been wanting to get into tech, and it was Google. I mean, it was Google. They're literally, there's Google, Facebook, and when was that? That was 2013. So yeah, Google and Facebook were like the big two. Those were the places everybody wanted to work. Amazon. But at that point, Amazon was still primarily in Seattle. I wasn't moving there. So,
True.
No. So Google and Facebook, that was the thing. And so to get to the finish line twice and think that you had crossed it, and then someone's like, oh, no. The goalpost moved. That was depressing. And you feel like, okay, well, did I do something wrong? And what is it that I could have done that was better? And it's like, I couldn't have done anything better. They just lost the head count because it was the end of the year. So that's another pro tip. Take jobs, if you can, at the beginning of the year, because that's when budgets are set. Budgets are set around November, December. Yeah. So that's why hiring tends to start in January. And you want to go when there's a fresh influx of cash and people are not going to run out. Because you never know what's going to happen if you take a job and let's say you accept a job in, let's say, October. The funding for that job may be called into question at the end of December or mid-December, and you won't even know. So, and maybe it was a blessing in disguise that I didn't get that role because it was towards the end of the year. And then I found something that was for me that spring, and that was Facebook. But I would say that was the hardest thing, was wondering, is there something I could have done better? Did I do something wrong? And I always am the type that makes a decision and then I second guess it. And I do that all the time whenever I make a move. So that is, and I'm a huge worrier. Like I think lawyers are just by, I don't know.
How do you counteract that? How do you counteract that?
How do I counteract being risk averse, or how do I counteract being a worrier?
Being a worrier.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know that I have counteracted that successfully. And it's something that, again, my mom always tries to get me to come to terms with, because her thing is like, you can't worry and pray. You have to pick one.
I'm loving your mom. She's everything right now.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. But that's her thing, is like, you can't pray about something and then also worry about it. You need to choose to use your energy, one or the other. I mean, she'll also tell you, faith without works is dead. So don't just pray and do nothing. You pray and you do the work, but you choose not to worry. And patience is about how you wait while you wait. And that was another big thing that I kind of took from that, is that she was telling me, patience isn't just about the waiting. It's the spirit and the mood that you keep while you wait. And if you have a bad attitude while you're waiting, you may not be rewarded. Like, you need to take advantage of that time, whether that's more preparation so that when the opportunity does come, you're ready for it. Or maybe that's directing your energy elsewhere, just to something else in that moment. Maybe it's to your family, or maybe it's to a hobby, or maybe it's, your community. But you need to keep a good spirit while you wait.
Can you speak to maybe another challenge that was major for you that you had to overcome?
My very first job in legal, I graduated from law school in 2008, which was like the worst time to graduate from anything and have a job, because the economy crashed.
Exactly.
So I had like a really interesting 1-2 punch of that. So I graduated from law school. I started working at a firm. It was great. I had interned there the year before, and I liked them. They liked me. I passed the bar. It was great. The economy crashes. And I was like, oh no. And as soon as the credit markets dried up, all the work dried up, because I worked in Silicon Valley. So everybody is essentially they were doing deals on credit. Right. And you're looking for VC funds, and people were not funding businesses, and they were not investing because they were scared. So everybody was hoarding cash. So there was a blog called Above the Law. Well, it's still there. It's called Above the Law, and lawyers read it all the time. It's got like, industry scandal and information and rumors. And one of the rumors on there was that this one particular office of a firm, which was the firm I worked at, was going to let all of their associates go because they didn't have enough business. And I was like, oh man, is this my office? It was my office.
Wow, they didn't list the name though.
No, they didn't list the name.
Yikes.
But I was reading between the lines of what the rumor was saying, and I was like, oh, this has to be my office. And it was my office. Like, literally 2 days later, you could see the partners coming down the hall in twos, and I was like, oh, this is not going to end well.
Yikes.
And yeah, all of the first year associates got laid off, and some second year associates, and some third year associates. And it was scary because it's like, well, what do you do? I don't have enough experience to go like get a new job just yet. Like, I don't know if I could do that. And they gave us an option between, here is a severance package, which was basically like, I think 3 or 4 months of pay. Or you could go work at a nonprofit, which they would fund for literally half of the salary that you made for that year. and of course, because I'm a worrier and I'm risk averse, I was saying, oh, I should just take this 1 year nonprofit job because at least it's secure. I know it'll be there, even though it's not the same amount of money. Oh, and even better, my husband and I had bought a house the 2 days before the partners came and said everybody was laid off.
Wow.
Yeah. And I told him I'd read this rumor, and we were sitting in the mortgage broker's office, and I was like, I don't know if we should sign these papers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just saw this today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we should do this.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, no, we should do it because it's a perfect house. And, it was cheap because the real estate market had started to tank too. So
Yeah.
this is the perfect house. We will never
Perfect
be able
time
to buy a house like this for this price again. And if that happens, we'll just figure it out and make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did. And I was just like, of course, scared.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 days later, the partners come down the hall, and I go home and I was like, well, what do we do? Should I take the severance, or should I take the nonprofit job for a year? And he was like, bet on yourself, take the severance.
I like this guy. Okay. And what happened next?
Well, and I'm sitting in the house. We
Right.
bought the house. I'm sitting in the house. So,
Yeah.
I ended up finding a job within 2 months.
Mm.
So
With 2 months severance ready.
Yeah. So we ended up making money off of it. So. So yeah. But it was scary. It was nerve-wracking.
Would you say that your husband was kind of like your knight in shining armor at that time when he told you to bet on yourself? Because my next question was going to be, what gave you that confidence to jump out there even though you felt like you weren't ready for a new job?
Yeah. He was just like, you're smart. You're capable. Why don't sell yourself short? You could do this work. You can do this. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I haven't done it long enough. And he was like, just bet on yourself.
Yeah.
Why are you not willing to bet on yourself? Like, oh, okay.
What is
like, and if you bet on yourself and it ends up not working out in your favor right now, he's like, then just say it was my fault. I will make it work.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. That's okay. I was still scared every day because I'm just not used to I'm a person who has a plan B and a plan C at all times. So it was weird to be out there and not have the plan B.
Yeah.
Or at least, if I'm going to, if not taking the severance was having no plan B. Taking the nonprofit job would have been like, okay, cool, that's the plan B.
Right.
He was like, no, take the severance. And also, I was raised to not rely on a man for anything. Even though he's my husband, it still is very foreign to me because I was raised to be independent and to always have my own money, to always have my own work ethic. And I'm just intrinsically motivated anyway. So I like to be productive and to be impactful. And that was weird for me to like sit and look for a job because it's like, well, so what am I supposed to do all day? Does this mean I need to, if I'm not working, does this mean I need to like make sure that the house is clean every day and that I have dinner on the table? Like I didn't know.
So how did that work out? And how did you figure that out? Because to me, what I'm hearing from you is that this was a moment of both clarity but also vulnerability for you, where you had the opportunity to, you know what I mean, to really depend on your husband and see, I would say, a man, because you said you were taught not to ever, depend on a man, to see a man who's your man in a different light as a supporter. So how did that, how do you view that type of situation of not dependent on a man or anything like that now, after going through that experience?
Yeah, I still wouldn't. I mean, not I did, but I mean, it's not my nature. Like It wouldn't, I was never like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good way to give an analogy, but I had friends or acquaintances and people that I knew in college and elsewhere. Oh, even when I was interning at the Warriors, I would see girls and like their entire goal was to hook up with a player to end up getting married or be taken care of. And that to me was just never like, that was not my thing. No knock to those that are into it. But for me personally, I always wanted my own career. Like even as a little girl, I didn't play house. I played office. So
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't feed dolls. I didn't do any of that. I would set my dolls up like at desks, like they were doing stuff. They were working. So
Been a boss.
yeah, that just was never my thing. So it was very hard to be that vulnerable and also to really just have to sit with myself and figure out like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And what does that look like? And how do you get there?
What do you tell me a couple things that you feel like your husband did? Because of course he understands you and he knows who you are. Tell me a couple things for the guys who are listening that you feel like your husband did in order to make you feel safe in that space to be vulnerable and say, you know what, this is going to be all right.
Well, I never had to worry about how we were doing. I mean, I never had to question where something was going to come from or if he was going to provide.
You talk about finances at this point.
In all ways. My husband is awesome. He is even to this day. Like I was gone for 2 days at a conference. I came back late last night. And before that, I was at he was with me at Afrotech on Friday, and then Saturday I was at Afrotech. And I never have to worry about if my kids are going to be okay, or if they're going to get to their activities, or if they're going to be at swim class, or if they're going to be well fed, or if they're going to be entertained, or if they're going to be stimulated, because he does all of those things. He is a super hands-on, fantastic father. He does laundry. He cooks. He works full time. He's actually, so full circle moment, he's actually going to Google next month. So he ended up getting a role. So he's going to Google. He does all of these things, and he still is a very attentive father and husband. And he's a fantastic engineer and professional in his own right. So I never had to worry that any of those things would be taken care of. And he also is the same person who, knows when to give me space to let me think through things, and also when to say, you need to get it together. Like you need to come on and gather yourself.
What does that conversation look like when you give pushback, when he might be trying to give you constructive feedback? Or when you might be trying to give him constructive feedback and there's pushback? How do you guys how do you both resolve that?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what the issue is or what the conversation topic is. Sometimes we can sit and hash it out, and it's very respectful. Like, I hear your side, you hear my side. This is what I'm trying to get across. And other times it might be so contentious where he's like, you know what, you don't get it. Never mind. We're also very different in terms of temperament. Like, I'm a hothead, and I get super, passionate and excited about things. And he is much more reserved.
He's an engineer.
And so, yeah. He's much more reserved. And he's also a very linear thinker. So things are typically black and white for him. And for me, they used to be for me too. But as I've gotten older, I see a lot more shades of gray.
Yeah.
And the way that we even communicate can be different. He's also extremely loyal, to the point where he will oftentimes put himself dead last to take care of other people or worry about other people's preferences or feelings. And I'm very much, I don't operate that way a lot. So I'm being better about it, but that's not typically my MO. So that's his default. My default is, okay, well, how is this for the greater good? Okay, well, if it's not for the greater good, how is it going to be beneficial to everybody that lives in our house?
Gotcha.
So, he cares deeply about other people's feelings, and that, like, even just telling his team that he was leaving to go to Google, and he was just so passionate and so, like, worried about how they would feel, and that he didn't want them to think he was deserting them. He's been at that job for like 9 years. And he's like, it's fine. You gave them almost a decade of your life. It's fine.
Well, speaking of jobs and having impact and caring about others and their feelings. You had the opportunity to pitch the supplier diversity program to the CFO of Facebook, and you only had 13 minutes to tell them why it mattered. I mean, 30 minutes to tell them why it mattered.
30 minutes.
Yeah, but you said that you did manage to convince him in 15 minutes that this is what Facebook should be doing. How did you do that?
So I would say it's the same advice I would give anybody when you're presenting something if you want to be funded, is you have to know your audience. So you have to understand what are their drivers, what motivates them, what are the things that help them make decisions and make decisions quickly. And for, dealing with Wayner, Wayner is he's the CFO, right? He's an accountant. They like numbers. They want to see data.
Right.
Also, tech is a very data-driven industry. So he wants to see finances. He wants to see data. He wants to see charts. What's the return on investment for whatever it is he's doing, or if there's a cost savings. So it was literally giving him that information, and then also making it very easy for him. Put it in 5 slides and said, "Here's where we are. Here's where I want us to go. If we do that, here's what it will yield." And he's like, "Okay, cool." He asked maybe 2 questions.
Wow.
But that's because you have to know your audience, so you have to give them the information that you know that they want and that they need to make decisions. And you also have to anticipate the questions that they'll ask, and then you have to answer them before they ask them.
Love it.
So he also really just understood the importance of what we call doing well by doing good. And the business will do well, regardless of whether we did supplier diversity or not. But he also understood the strategic impact of providing access and opportunity to communities that look like ours, but also supported our large internal employee resource group. So that was LGBTQ, that's women, it's veterans, and it was minorities. So this is the Latinx group, Black at, and AAIP at, all of those things. And he understood that. And it took no more than 15 minutes and 5 slides. So we were just like staring at each other and like just chatting for the remaining 15 minutes.
I love it.
But that's also a testament to Facebook hiring people that get it. Like if this had been maybe a different company, a different CFO, I would have had to sell him on the business case of diversity. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to sell very hard.
What inspired you to be so passionate about diversity and inclusion? And, those of the African diaspora being represented in the tech community. Because I saw in another article that you were in that you said that diversity, is not just putting more faces in jobs, hiring more people of color. The inclusion part is also the celebration of those cultures and things like that. But what inspired you to say, you know what, I care about this issue?
Well, I think it's my lived experience to a certain extent, right? Like it's my walk. I'm a double minority. So what's interesting, and I don't know if we can get it, that's a whole other topic about how do you identify. But I think for me, I identify as Black first and then a woman. And if you ask another Black woman, she might identify as a woman first and then Black. But I feel from my personal narrative and my personal lived experience, if you changed me to, let's say my son, right? Well, maybe not now, because I think it's a completely different generation and things he's exposed to will be different obstacles. But if I were a guy, I don't feel like the events of my life would largely be that different. So I think that means that the basis of my experience has been because I'm Black. It's not because I'm a woman. So, but that's me. For another woman, it could be, she's a woman first and then Black, and a lot of her experience is born out of the fact that she's a woman.
Right.
Everyone's different. But it was understanding that Black women are the most entrepreneurial group in the country. And it was, my dad was an entrepreneur, so it was seeing him own a computer shop. It was seeing him interact with athletes and entertainers when he was in management. And it was understanding how all of those things, when you're an entrepreneur, it's feast or famine, right? Like you eat what you kill.
Absolutely.
And so some months are great and some months are horrible.
Yeah.
But it was also understanding that Facebook, as they were moving into hardware as well with Oculus, to build better products, more inclusive products, you needed people who had a stake in those products, and those could be your vendors. And I had a coworker who we were playing Oculus one day, and you can see my hair, I have big, fluffy, curly hair. And at the time, I think it may have been flat ironed. And so she and I were playing, and my headset worked fine. Hers didn't work. And it's because the headset, the strap, could not detect her head. The sensors in the head strap could not detect her head through her hair. And she's a huge gamer. So the first thing I was thinking was like, well, maybe it needs to be reset. And she's like, no, it's not set up for somebody with curly hair. And that's a problem because curly hair.
Right.
So this is clearly not made for me. And the way that you phrase the argument, and the way that I also phrased it to Wayner, is it's money, right? Like, you're going to lose. How much money are you going to lose if you ship a product that is not inclusive versus if you have an inclusive product that is made for people with curly hair so that they can also play the game? Just break it down to green. If you tell people how much money they stand to lose or how much money they stand to make, they will listen.
Right.
They will listen. So to me, it's like, our community drives culture.
Right.
Period.
Definitely.
If Black people say something is hot, it's hot. Ask a Kardashian if you aren't sure.
Right.
So if we say something is good, it's going to sell. And so the fact that we are constantly creating content, culture, products, services, music, what have you, but we don't own any of the revenue that it generates. And we don't contribute to that product, and we don't get a piece of that pie. To me, just seemed like a lost opportunity. And I wanted to fix that. And the other piece to that is not just Black people driving culture, but women control, I think, 60% of spending in a home. So women are making all of the large monetary decisions in a house anyway.
Right.
So regardless of color. So why would you not want a woman helping you build products? We're the ones deciding which ones we buy.
Very true. I love it. This logic is A1 that you're using right now. In this journey, right? Because what I would say and what some of my mentors would say is that you're fighting a good fight. And the good fight, of trying to be more diverse, in Silicon Valley, which is not as diverse, not very diverse. You're fighting this good fight, and sometimes it has to get tiresome. How do you stay motivated on a daily basis? And what do you have any success rituals or things that you do every day to make sure that Bari is, A1?
I say thank you every day. I think that's a big motivator, is just to say thank you for the opportunity. And I say that because, my grandmother didn't have this opportunity. My grandmother was a school teacher. I don't know that if she had, endless possibilities, that she would have necessarily picked that. A lot of it is about exposure and access and opportunity. And I've had of having a mom who hustled to provide exposure and access and opportunity. And that encouraged me to go get it. I think the other piece to that is, my dad's parents were sharecroppers with third grade educations. And so to me, that is like a huge foundational element. And to be completely candid, I didn't really know them all that well. I had a relationship with them, but it wasn't super close because first off, my dad was like one of 12 kids. So there were and even just the fact that they had 12 kids is because if you're a sharecropper, you need more people to work the land.
Absolutely.
So it's just looking at something like that and saying, but God, like I easily could have been in Vicksburg, Mississippi, sharecropping. But my grandparents moved. My dad was in North Richmond, and his personal intrinsic motivation got him from North Richmond to a scholarship at Cal.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it's just having that foundational element of being so grateful for having any opportunity that I could to learn something and to have the ability and the access to go to school and to have those resources. It's like, I'm not going to squander this. I'm just not going to do it.
So what advice would you give to a parent who needs to prepare their son or daughter for the job market of tomorrow then?
That's a good question. I would say one cool thing that I did see at Afrotech was a founder who created something called Scholly. And
Oh, yeah.
Scholly is, you spend a lot of time looking for internships, scholarships for college, all kinds of things. And this is essentially a portal, which makes it easier. So you kind of input your own profile and it matches you with scholarships that you fit the criteria for. So I remember when I applied for college, I had to literally manually look for things that I was eligible for. And this, will give it to you quickly, and it's awesome. So I would just say prepare your child and also encourage your kids to go out and seek new opportunities and experiences, whether that's through travel or through that's an internship or it's a job. I also think to some extent, and I'm definitely guilty of it. I just spent like 30 minutes babbling about how risk averse and worrisome I am. But I think you have to allow your kids a certain element of freedom to explore and to do that unencumbered. Like, don't project your own issues off onto them. Like, if you are scared and worried about something, that doesn't mean that your kid is. So you have to give them that freedom to be able to explore and find what works for them and what are they interested in, what motivates them. And, I think sometimes we're very risk averse people, but I think for good reason. So we tend to steer kids into be a doctor, be a lawyer. Some kids are not cut out for that. Some kids want to be engineers. Some kids want to go into the arts. Some kids are you all have different talents. So it's how do you help your child find that talent? And then how do you as a parent support and cultivate it?
And speaking of supporting and cultivating, for you, how important has mentorship been on your journey? And have the majority of your mentors been male or female? Does that even matter?
I think what's interesting about mentorship and sponsorship, I would say sponsorship is more important. It's the same thing, which is interesting. And a lot of the writing that I've done, particularly about founders and people who fund them, funders are looking for people that remind them of themselves.
Right.
And the same is true to a certain extent of mentors and sponsors. People want to see many versions of themselves, and however biased or, unfair that may seem, it's true. So you want to make sure that if you want someone to mentor you or sponsor you, you have to reflect some type of ambition or motivation or eagerness or even skill set that they have. And I would say that, my mentors have been both male and female. I've had, interestingly, some really impactful white female, and I've had some interesting and impactful Black male mentors. And I think the person who's given me the best advice, maybe aside from my husband, has been a Black male mentor, and he is the general counsel of the Seahawks. And he's had a very interesting, diverse career. And, he went from tech to sports, back to tech, and then back to sports again. And I think Ed, he told me that no one is going to advocate for me the way I will advocate for myself. And so if I don't ask for what I think I'm worth, or if I don't ask for what I think I deserve, nobody else will do it for me. And people are not going to just give it to you. And you are an attorney, so you need to treat everything like it's negotiable. And it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. That's probably best advice I've gotten,
Yeah.
aside from just things my grandmother and my mom taught me. But I mean, actual business advice, Ed Goins had that locked down. Like that's it.
You know, it's funny. One of my friends a long time ago, probably like 10 years ago, he said, people don't get what they deserve. They get what they can negotiate.
That's exactly what it is. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you can negotiate. And that's why Ed was always saying, like, treat everything as if it's negotiable.
Got you.
And don't ever take the first offer. Like, do not take what somebody when somebody is giving you, they're telling you what they think you're worth.
Say that again.
And
when
someone gives you the first offer, they're giving you what they think that you're worth. And if you accept that, and always know that that's a low ball.
Got you.
And so if you accept that, you are saying, yep, I'm not worth more than that. I'm not. Don't accept that.
Got you. So we talking about mentorship. There's something else that a friend of mine, Sean Blanchard, says. He says friendtorship is something that's huge as well. So what does your peer group look like? You know, who are some of the people in your circle, you know, occupation wise and things like that? Who's kicking it with Bari and fam?
A lot of different people. I still, of course, have my day ones. So, and everybody's walk is different. Some are as motivated as me. Some are not. Some prefer to, you know, put their families first or work-life balance first, or they seek validation in other ways. I am somebody who fully confesses to find personal validation, the most validation, in being impactful as a professional, because I feel like that can leave a legacy that is larger than my family. I feel like my family will definitely be my legacy, but I think that there is something greater that I can leave. I would like to do that. So yeah, I have some entrepreneurs who are in my circle, some tech founders, some tech funders, some stay-at-home moms. I have a little bit of everybody, and I think that actually makes me better. You take tips from different people, and you learn, you cultivate, you know, your own best self by getting tips from people who are really good at what it is that they do.
What do you think is a common thread amongst this group of diverse people that you have in your life?
Everybody is motivated. They're all motivated, but they're motivated by different things and for different outcomes. But none of them are slackers. And it's interesting because you could look at someone and say, well, this person is, you know, this person is works part-time or is a stay-at-home mom. Like, why would you kick it with her? And it's like, because she also shows me how to have more balance in my personal life. If it were up to me, I would probably work all day long and like not do a ton of other stuff. And she's like, no, you need to set aside time to do this. Or it's, you know, working with a founder and then seeing how hard they actually work. Because it's, for founders, again, it's feast or famine. You're out there trying to hustle, sell your product to these companies or sell your product to consumers. And then it's, you know, it's other working moms. And then it's figuring out, you know, how do you do this? How do you find time to actually take for yourself? What do you do for yourself? And that's always a big thing with all of the women that I talk to is nobody is good at self-care. I don't think Black women generally are good at it.
Do you think that it's specifically a Black woman thing, or maybe it's a woman thing, or is it a human thing, or?
I definitely think it's probably a woman thing generally, but I think it's especially a Black woman thing. And I say that because I think we, you know, the Sheryl Sandberg book, Lean In, like I was making this joke yesterday, is that like, I don't know any Black women who've had the luxury to lean out. Like I don't know any.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, I know 2 Black stay-at-home moms, but they never just stayed at home. Like one had a bunch of rental properties. She and her husband had rental properties or investment properties, and what her job was to look after them and manage them. So yeah, she stayed home, but she didn't do nothing.
Right.
There's another mom who is at home, but she owns her own travel business and concierge business. So people are like, oh, you stay at home. She stays at home, but she doesn't do nothing. So even when we're supposed to be doing nothing, we can't do that. So, and whether that's taking care of your kids or taking care of your husband or taking care of, older family members, or you're super into community service, whether that's through a sorority or a fraternity, or, I think we just, as Black people, are not awesome at it, but I think Black women are even worse because we're socialized to take care of everybody else first and we're last.
Got you. That being said, you're an early riser. 5:15 a.m. between 5:15 and 5:30 a.m. is when you get up.
Actually earlier now.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, I would say my alarm goes off at 4:37 on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Because I try to go to the gym on those days. Now, full disclosure, today my alarm went off. I turned that mug off. And I was like, okay, not today.
You're entitled to it.
Yeah. But I also been traveling a lot. Like, I got in late last night. I was like, I can't do it. So I think it's important for you to find whatever that thing is for you. And if you, for me, I'm an only child, so I'm used to having some alone time. And the gym, getting up that early and going to the gym is the only time when nobody is looking for me. Yeah. So it's like work. I don't have to do work at that time. My husband is still asleep. My kids are still asleep. So I use that time to actually like go sweat it out. And also like the endorphins and like sweating out, getting that aggression out, and you just feel ready for the day. And so, yeah. Okay.
What does the rest of your day look like your schedule? If you're in the gym, not too far after the 4:37 wake up, then, on a time basis, like kind of how does the rest of your day flow out?
Yeah, it's basically it's 5. I'm in the gym by 5. I'm there until probably about 6, and then come home, shower, figure out like, does everybody have what they need for the day? Just kind of do a cursory glance, like, does everybody have what they need? Are there any school projects due? My husband and I have a shared Google calendar, like a family calendar, so I can see if he has any events that night or if I have something that night. I've been pretty bad about putting things on it, so he's been lecturing me about that for like the last 2 months. I got kind of lazy about putting. The calendar was my idea like 3 years ago, and since then, like the last 3 months, 2-3 months, I've been really bad about putting things on it. But yeah, so it's getting out the house. I'm usually out of the house by no later than 7:15. And that may change because now my husband is going to Google. And so the way that we set up our schedule, he did the drop off of our kids and I did the pickup. And now that's probably going to have to flip because he's going in the opposite direction. Instead of San Francisco, he's going to Mountain View. So we have to figure that out. But then it's usually just meetings, or it's, is there some type of report or presentation due? And then I'm spending time doing that. So it's usually a back and forth of that until about 4:30. And then I try to leave at 4:30 to go pick up my kids, deal with commute, get to my kids by 6, and then get my kids fed, baths, read, whatever it is we're going to do for a little bit. They go to bed. I usually log back on at about 8:30. And then I may work until, my husband has a collection of pictures of me falling asleep on the computer in various ways. So I would say I work until I go to sleep, but it's not planned. Like I usually just fall asleep with my hands on a keyboard.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Around what time would you say that is that you usually dozing off?
Might be 11.
Okay.
11. And then, I have insomnia. So sometimes I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I try to make good use of that time. So a lot of the writing that I do happens during that period. May get a good tweet storm or two during that time too, because I'm usually watching Morning Joe or something and trying to see what your president's up to that morning. And he's always doing something. So.
Got you. Okay. Yeah. Well, last question before we jump into the dolphin tank.
Yes.
What would you say is Bari's superpower and why?
I would say my superpower is having a lot of different interests and cultivating those interests so that I could be good at multiple things.
Okay.
And just really trying to empower other people. I feel like if you are trying to empower other people, you're trying to give other people game, that is better in the long run for everybody involved.
Very true. Very true. All right, so it's time for the dolphin tank now. You ready? You ready to jump in?
Oh, I guess.
Don't worry, it's no sharks. The bites aren't that harmful.
You don't do the Birdman hand rub, which means it can't be that good.
So here we go. Rapid fire. What's the top tech that you're using to make your life run smoothly?
Ooh, DoorDash or Munchery. Anything that's food delivery, yeah, I'm all over it. So I'm all over it. I am a Munchery member. That's how much I use Munchery. That food is good though. It's really good.
Okay.
DoorDash, all over it. Food delivery, hands down.
Okay. Favorite quote or motto that you live by?
Ooh.
And why?
I think my grandmother has so many awesome sayings that she gave me before she passed.
Sorry to hear.
I would say my favorite is probably expect what you accept.
Ooh. I like that.
Yeah.
And why so?
You teach people how to treat you. So if you accept trash behavior, that's what people will give you. You are not giving them an incentive to do better. There's no reason for them to do better if you accept that. So, and the way that came about, it's like a quick story. I was a freshman in college. There's this guy. I liked this guy, and he kept asking me to hang out. And my mom and my grandparents were like, "You are not a hangout girl. You are take me on a date, girl." And I was like, "Well, he's not." I went home on a Saturday, which was 5 miles down the street, and was talking to my grandma about this. Oh, this guy keeps asking me to hang out. I don't understand why. And she said, because you don't demand more. And I was like, oh, what? Excuse me? And she said, you because you have done this. I mean, you've hung out. So if that's what you accept, that's what you should expect. Expect what you accept. He's giving you what you are accepting, and you're not demanding more. So if you don't demand more, there's no reason that he should do more. And I was like, wow, that was mind blowing to me. To hear that at 17, and I was like, wow, this is applicable in every area of life. This is work, this is relationships, this is friendships, this is everything.
I'm low key speechless right now. I love that quote. Man, that's dynamic.
Yeah.
All around. I love the story too. What's your favorite book? Or the book that's had the biggest impact on you?
Ooh.
You can name a couple if you need to, because I know you're a big reader.
I'm trying to figure that out. I would say two things that are just recent off the top of my head, because I was really trying to make sense of what the hell happened in the last year. A Colony in a Nation by Chris Hayes. It was very good. Between the World and Me, of course, was awesome. I actually gave that book to my general counsel at Facebook. He and I had a conversation, and he was asking me about Mike Brown and how did I feel, and if what are ways he could educate himself and do better. And he had a 13-year-old son. So I gave him the book and said the whole premise of the book is that Ta-Nehisi writes it to his 13-year-old son. There may be a parallel there. You should read it. He read that book in a week. I gave it to him on a Friday. He came back on Monday, and he had highlights and Post-it notes and questions, and he it really resonated with him, which to me was
it's phenomenal.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's wonderful. So that definitely. I'm trying to think of some others. The Bluest Eye. The Bluest Eye was phenomenal. Kindred, Octavia Butler book Kindred. I loved that book. I read that book probably every other year. I've read it 100 times, but I love that book. But yeah, those are some of course that's I just love that book.
Yeah.
Let's see. I also read a lot of biographies and history books. So The Loneliness of the Black Republican, one of my good friends wrote that, but it's also a really just interesting book to understand how Black Republicans think, and how they continue to support that party. Because again, I was trying to understand what happened in the last year, but yeah, those are some of my favorites.
Okay. What are 3 jewels that you would tell someone looking to create their best life?
I would start with expect what you accept. What else would I tell someone? I hate to be cliche, but my mom's always telling me your attitude determines your altitude. Like if you have a bad attitude, even if you have an awesome skill set, but you have a horrible attitude, like that's what will happen to you, is you will not get very far. That's another thing I would say. I think you just have to find something that you're passionate about and master that. I think you want to be careful too that you're not doing a ton of things where you're splitting yourself in so many different ways that you're not really that good at any of them. So find something that you're passionate about and really invest in that. Let's see, what else would I say? Yeah. My mom always says this other thing too, is do what you got to do until you can do what you want to do.
Right.
Which is super true. But I think a lot of the lesson in that is that don't think that things are beneath you, because they're not. I mean, if you aren't in a position to call shots, then you need to humble yourself and do what it is that you need to do.
Trust me, I'm with you. I graduated in the top 10% of my business class and found myself as a janitor, to do what I needed to do in order to get to where I was trying to go to. So, and that taught me just a huge lesson on humility and appreciating and respecting everyone. And,
and you didn't ask for this one, but I also think it's a good thing.
Okay.
My mom says this all the time, when it's everybody else, it's you. And so if 10 people are telling you something about yourself, it's strength in numbers. And you would do well to heed that advice, particularly if they're people that you trust, or if they're making observations about why maybe you aren't getting something that you feel that you deserve or something that you want. But yeah, my mom is very good for giving you like a low-key humbling quote. And she's like, when it's everybody else, it's you. Yeah. Like if 5 people are saying this, is probably some merit to it. You might want to investigate.
Your mom is the oracle. Clearly.
I wish she had some lotto numbers.
Hey. Hilarious.
Run those Powerball numbers real quick.
ASAP. So what's next for Bari? Bari A. Williams, Esquire, and tech enthusiast executive.
I don't know. It's a good question. I'm in a very interesting season in life where I'm trying to figure that out. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And being in a business role has been interesting. It's been really, really different. And I've been advising 3 companies, but in a legal capacity. And what I found is that I really miss being in the law. So it's really, figuring out which is my happy place. Is it law or is it business, or is it trying to find some hybrid of both? And if I did, what does that look like? So it's really trying to sit and do the work that I was just telling you to do about how to design your best life. Is what does mine look like?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think what else is next? Probably more writing. More writing on tech and inclusive innovation. How do you design products with us in mind? And what happens what are the ramifications if that does not happen from a monetary perspective, and also how could tech be used in nefarious reasons against us? Gotcha.
So how do the listeners in the Create Your Life series family stay in contact with you? Social media, any way?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm very much on Twitter.
Okay.
Bari A. Williams, all one word. That's my Twitter handle.
Bari,
And
right?
yes, BariAWILLIAMS. So
Okay.
that's my Twitter handle. And that same all one word, I suppose, is also my website. So bariawilliams.com.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Bari, thank you so much for being on the Create Your Life series. Like, you dropped so many jewels about everything, from being in a relationship to, your journey to becoming a lawyer to just being an all around dynamic reader and writer and just woman of perseverance. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Beautiful people, this is the Create Your Life series. I'm your host, Kevin Y. Brown, and we are here with our guest, Miss Bari A. Williams, and it is time for the turnaround. If you don't know what the turnaround is, it's when our guest gets to ask me any 3 questions that she chooses, and I have to answer them. So, Bari, are you ready for the turnaround?
Oh, yes.
Yikes.
Oh, yes.
Yikes. Oh, yes. I've asked you a million questions, and now the tables are turned. I'm ready, I think.
Birdman hand rub.
Not cool. Not cool.
Who is your favorite rapper of all time?
Tupac Shakur.
Oh, yes. Okay, now I got to follow up. What's your favorite Tupac song of all time?
That is a hard question.
Yeah.
See, wow, no, you can't do that.
I just did.
My favorite Tupac song. See, just Tupac himself just made me feel empowered to be black. That one song, I think it's Me Against the World, he says, even a genius asks questions. That to me is one of the most powerful lines in a song ever. I felt that he's a genius. Definitely hardworking. Original. I literally know probably if not all of his songs, but most of them by heart. I honestly.
So pick your favorite.
I'd have to see a list.
Top 3 then. The top 3.
I have to see a list.
I gave you 2 more. Top 3.
I know.
And not even in order. Just top 3.
Crazy.
Okay.
I wonder if Heaven Got a Ghetto. See, these ain't favorites. These are just songs that I like. I wonder if Heaven Got a Ghetto. To My Unborn Child. Keep Your Head Up.
That was actually my class anthem. Like our high school, each class had a theme song. That was our class theme song.
Yeah. Marvin Gaye used to sing to me, he had me feeling like black was the thing to be. I mean, it just, for me as a soundtrack, I can relate to so many of the lyrics deeply.
Yeah.
And coming from poverty and being in foster care and, you know what I mean? Like, it was just, I could just relate to him. So I don't necessarily have a particular song, but it's just his catalog I can really relate to. You got
What's
2
your favorite
more.
color?
My favorite color is gray. And it was funny that you was talking about it earlier. My favorite color is a non-color. I just think of it like, you think in the gray, you know what I mean? A lot of creative things and dope stuff happens in the gray area. Plus being a fashion major in college, fashion and business major, to me, gray complements so many different colors and stuff like that. So, and I just think it's cool that it's a non-color. It's the combination of the 2. So, yeah, that's my life. You got
it.
You got 1 more though.
Coming to America or Boomerang?
Wow. For me, Boomerang. I would say Boomerang. Eddie Murphy almost had me want to be an ad exec. So I would have to vibe with that. Coming to America was cool, but yeah, I never really understood the hype.
I don't understand. What do you mean you didn't understand the hype? What?
Why is this movie so important? Like, I mean, it's an important movie, you know what I mean? I guess for the culture, but to me, it wasn't nothing really crazy. But I've never really sat down and watched it. I'll have to admit that too.
Okay. So if you never sat down and watched it,
I mean, I've seen it, but I didn't break it down and try to analyze it. I'm like, all right, you know what I mean? Like, there's, I don't know.
So then, okay, here's another one then. Then Boys in the Hood or Menace to Society?
What's the question? Which one do I relate to more? Or
the same question as the last one, which Boomerang or Coming to America, and you
Boys in the Hood or Menace to Society?
I mean, you rolling with O-Dog or Trey? Or Doughboy, rather. Doughboy was the O-Dog equivalent in that movie.
I feel like Old Dog was more of a savage, though.
Yes.
I don't know. I say, so here's the thing. While you see both in the community and the hood, I think that the situation with Doughboy and his brother was very tragic. I mean, it's not common. Like, I remember about to go to college and there was a cat from Richmond, matter of fact, who had just got a scholarship, and he was literally getting out his car to go into the house, and somebody came and shot him in the head. So they bust his head right. You know what I mean? He was about to go to school the next week. Mm-hmm. So, while those movies are reflective of environments that, I've grown up in, I'm not going to favorite them. One of them. Because I don't want to say that one of them is my favorite, but I can understand the point of views from both, and the cat being cats just being savages, and I feel like a lot of times we end up becoming products of our environment because nobody gives us the exposure, and it's just that's the only options that we see, and I see that a lot. When I go home, for me, 3 weeks ago, my brother got shot in the head in front of the house, right? So it's one of those situations where it's kind of like you got to do, like you said, your best to try to empower others and stuff like that. But you also, like you said, when you need to do your fitness and what's it called for law? When you got to do.
Again, what's the what?
What's it called for law when you got before you take? Huh?
Oh, character and fitness.
Right.
You got to make sure that's on the up and up.
But you see how you have to distance yourself. So unfortunately, sometimes you got to distance yourself and then you got to come back. It's like that Jay-Z line. You feel me? I can't help the poor. From one of them gave back. Got rich, gave back. And so that's the win-win. And so, unfortunately, you got to take those routes from time to time.
Yeah.
So
I totally get it.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yep.
Well, good. I mean, you can give me like a favorite Pac song, but I'll take
it. What's your favorite Pac song?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh nah. You better have one. You gotta have one.
I don't know. There's so many. And what's interesting to me is like how many people are like, "Oh yeah, the All Eyes on Me album was the best," and I'm like, actually, Me Against the World was the best.
Me Against the World was the best. Well, it's one of the best. I have to go back and listen to them all a little bit.
Yeah, I mean everything. You have Dear Mama, you have Temptations, you have Me Against the World, you have Me and My Girlfriend, like all. I don't know, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which is my favorite, but I think I can take that Pac more seriously as a holistic individual on that album. I felt like All Eyes on Me was like a caricature.
Right. He was just so smart that it's almost a bit disappointing.
He was playing games. Like I get that he has to play a role to a certain extent, and he probably was super juiced because he's fresh out.
Right.
But a lot of that was not the real him. And as much as I hated that movie, what I did like was the back end when they showed him trying to figure out how to leave Suge and do his own thing.
Oh, okay. Got you. You talk about the All Eyes on Me movie.
That movie was, yeah. Yeah. But I appreciated how them showing that ending where it's like he was trying to figure out how he could leave and be more of himself and also do more acting and not, excuse me, and not, this caricature party rap. Because that wasn't him.
So, Coming to America or Boomerang?
Or Boomerang? What did you say again? Which was your choice?
Doesn't matter.
No, I'm just curious. I don't remember.
I know. So
you
it's
understand.
Coming to America.
You didn't understand Coming to America,
Coming
right?
to America or Boomerang?
So Coming to America is like my favorite movie of all time.
Okay.
But Boomerang, the older I get, the more I relate to Boomerang because it's like takes place in the workplace and relationships and how do you deal with them. And then I probably use more quotes from Boomerang than I do from Coming to America at this point. Also, I tried to show Coming to America to my 7-year-old and he didn't get like 90% of it. Like he was like, I don't understand why this is funny. But
nice.
It's also super dated, right? Like it was 87. So he doesn't get Jerry curls. He doesn't get, he just doesn't get it.
Got you.
But I do have a Soul Glow t-shirt and I have a
Hilarious.
Randy Watson World Tour shirt. and I have a Zamunda flag shirt.
I would actually rock one of those. Hold on. So Prince or MJ?
Ooh. Which is funny because both my kids love Michael Jackson. But I saw Prince. He came to Oracle in Oakland and he performed like maybe 3 weeks before he died. And we went. Ended up buying tickets that night on a whim. So I would say, that's hard. Prince got out there and did his thing with a piano and a microphone. I don't think Mike could do that. Mike needs fireworks and dancers. I'm just saying. I'm gonna go Prince.
Okay. Boys in the Hood or Menace?
Boys in the Hood.
Why?
I feel like I know more Treys and Rickies than I do Kane and O-Dogs. And so I guess that story probably just resonates with me more because I feel like I know them.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
I know some Doughboys too, but I know more Kane and less Kane. I know more Ricky and Trey.
Okay. Well, thank you for being on the Create Your Life series. This concludes the turnaround.
Thank you. It was fun.
Nah, super fun. You're funny.
More questions.
What else you want to ask?
More debates. Oh man. Are you football or basketball?
Basketball. I play basketball at Clark.
But I mean, in terms of watching, which do you prefer to watch? Still the same answer?
Yeah, but I don't really watch professional sports like that too much.
Okay. Do you watch college?
Not really.
No?
I'll just be working.
Okay. Okay. Favorite flavor of red Kool-Aid? Because red is a lot of different.
Cherry. Easy.
Yes.
Virtual high five.
The people that are like, oh, strawberry. I'm like, who raised you?
I'm trying to figure out where you found that. I've never even heard of strawberry.
Oh, you haven't? I've seen strawberry, watermelon, cherry, fruit punch, and I've had people say strawberry and fruit punch. I had one person say watermelon. And I was like, that's technically not even really red, but whatever. But yeah,
I forgot about fruit punch.
Like,
now it's cherry, bro.
Why are you out here voting for strawberry? And,
what does that put your life? What are you doing? Who are you?
Yeah.
Talking about some strawberry
Why are you
Kool-Aid.
here?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Create Your Life series, where we help you maximize your potential and results in the area of personal development, entrepreneurship, and travel. And I'm your host, Kevin Y. Brown.
Create your life. Crée ta propre vie.
Create your life.
创造你的生活。
Create your life.
Crea la tua vita.
Create your life.
Unstick your liver.
You better create your life.
Create your life.
Bari A.
Create your life.
Create your life.